The wind swept across the empty plains like a whisper from the spirits, carrying dust, heat, and the scent of an oncoming storm, while the fading sun bled crimson light across the mesas that stretched endlessly toward the horizon, painting the land in shades of gold and fire. She rode hard through that lonely country, her mare lathered with sweat, heart pounding as if it shared her own restless fear. Clara Winslow had not meant to be this far south, not meant to lose the road or the wagon train, not meant to find herself alone in Apache land as dusk fell like a closing hand. The last waterhole had been dry, her canteen half empty, and her stomach ached from hunger, but it wasn't thirst or hunger that haunted her, it was the sound she'd heard just before sundown, that soft thud of hooves behind her that stopped whenever she turned. She knew better than to look frightened. In the west, fear was an invitation. So she rode steady, head high, but when the sky turned from copper to purple and the first stars pierced through the veil of night, the horse beneath her whinnied low, ears flicking toward the darkness where shadows shifted with quiet intent. When she dismounted, she felt it, a presence, close and silent. Then came the voice, low and rough as gravel rolling in a creek bed. "You're far from your road, white woman." She spun, hand trembling on the revolver at her hip, and found herself looking into the eyes of an Apache warrior, his figure half swallowed by firelight and the night's wild dark. He stood tall, shoulders cut by leather and wind, the silver beads in his hair catching faint flickers from the small flame she'd lit to keep coyotes away. His gaze was unreadable, ancient and sharp, but not cruel, at least, not yet. "I don't want trouble," she said, though her voice betrayed her. "Then you shouldn't have come here," he answered, stepping closer, the ground between them crackling with unspoken challenge. "I lost my trail," she whispered, her throat dry. "I need food, water. Please, I'll pay." He stopped inches from her, so near she could see the scar that cut along his jaw and the steady rise of his chest as he breathed. "Pay," he echoed. "What money can buy you here, Lady of the Plains?" She fumbled with her satchel, pulling out 2 silver coins and holding them up like a child's offering. He didn't look at them. Instead, his gaze swept her face, dirt-streaked, lips cracked, eyes defiant, and he said, almost gently, "No money." "Then what'll you trade?" Her heart jumped, the words hanging heavy between them, thick with danger and something else, something that felt like the tremor before lightning. She swallowed hard. "I have nothing," she said, but her voice wavered. "Everyone has something," he murmured, taking one more step until the air between them felt alive. She saw the faint tremble of his jaw, the restraint in his stare, and the deep sadness that hid behind the steel. He pointed toward the fire. "Sit," he said. "You're shaking." She hesitated, then obeyed, lowering herself onto a rock as he crouched across from her, laying his rifle aside. "You ride alone," he said after a moment. "Why?" She hesitated, then spoke the truth because lies felt heavy under that gaze. "My husband was killed. Bandits. I was heading for Fort Bowie to start over." His eyes softened. "The desert is no place for a woman alone." "I didn't have a choice," she said. "Choices are all we have," he replied quietly. The fire snapped between them, and she noticed the scars that lined his hands, old burns, maybe, or marks from battles long past. His name, she learned slowly between silences, was Tahoma, which meant, water's edge. He had been a scout once, he said, before the wars, before treaties broke promises and men broke faith. Now he lived between 2 worlds, belonging to neither, trusting no one. "And yet you helped me," she said softly, her fear giving way to curiosity. He looked up, the shadow of a smirk touching his lips. "Helped you? Not yet." Her stomach knotted. "Then why?" "Because," he interrupted, "you looked like you'd fight the desert itself before you'd let it take you. That kind of fire deserves to live." They sat for a long time like that, the crackling flames painting their faces in gold, 2 strangers thrown together by fate and danger. She watched him as he cut a piece of dried meat and passed it to her. "Eat," he said simply. She took it, whispering thanks, but when their fingers brushed, The spark that jumped between them was unmistakable, raw, human, and confusing. She pulled back quickly, but his eyes followed her every movement. "You don't have to fear me," he said after a while, though something in his tone made her pulse race. "I didn't say I feared you. You didn't have to." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It hummed with tension, the kind that makes the night air itself feel alive. In the distance, thunder rolled. "Tell me," he said at last, "what'll you do when the storm breaks?" She met his gaze across the fire. "I'll survive," she said simply. His lips curved. "Good answer." The rain came fast, a sudden desert downpour that hissed against the earth. They took shelter beneath an outcrop, huddled close as the wind howled through the canyon. She could feel the heat of his body, the steady rhythm of his breath. "You should rest," he said, his voice rougher now, almost strained. "You'll need strength when the sun comes." "And you?" she asked. "I'll watch," he said. She wanted to speak, to ask what he was thinking, but his expression was carved in stone, unreadable. Lightning split the sky, illuminating his profile, the high cheekbones, the calm strength, and something inside her shifted, like the world had tilted and nothing would ever quite be the same again. "Tahoma," she whispered. He turned. "Yes, if I had something to trade," she said softly, "what would you take?" His jaw tightened. For a long time he didn't answer, then finally, he said, "I'd take the truth." "The truth," she echoed. "About why your eyes look like you're always waiting for someone who won't come back." Her breath caught. She turned away, staring into the rain. "Because I am," she whispered. He said nothing after that. When dawn came, the storm had passed, and the desert glittered with dew like 1,000 tiny mirrors. She woke to find him already standing, saddle packed, rifle slung. "You're leaving," she said, her voice softer than she meant. "You're safe now," he replied. "The fort's a half-day north." She rose quickly, heart pounding. "Wait, you can't just go." "I can," he said, mounting his horse. "You paid me in truth." "That's clear." "That's not what I meant." He looked down at her, eyes unreadable once more. "Then what did you mean?" She opened her mouth, but no words came. He gave a faint smile, sad and knowing. "Be careful, Clara Winslow. The desert remembers everything." And with that, he rode off into the morning light, leaving her standing in the echo of his shadow, the wind carrying the faint trace of his scent and the unspoken promise that their paths weren't finished crossing yet. 3 weeks passed since Clara last saw him, but the memory of that night clung to her like the dust of the desert that no amount of washing could erase. Fort Bowie was supposed to be a refuge, yet its walls felt more like a cage. Soldiers came and went, traders bartered in the yard, and every sunrise reminded her of the man who'd vanished into it. She'd told herself that Tahoma was a ghost of circumstance, a passing shadow in her story, but each night, when the wind moaned through the barracks and the coyotes howled from the hills, she heard his voice again, "What'll you trade?" She tried to bury herself in work, helping the fort's doctor tend to the wounded. Apache raids had grown bolder. The soldiers spoke his people's name with hate and fear, never seeing the humanity behind it. Sometimes, when she looked at the bloodied faces, she wondered how many had provoked the fights they now cursed. The world was crueler than she'd ever believed, and the line between right and wrong was as shifting as the desert sand. Then one dusk, a patrol limped back through the gates, half their number gone, their horses spent. She was helping carry a wounded man to the infirmary when she saw him. Dust-covered, his hair matted with sweat, but unmistakable. Tahoma. For a moment she thought she'd imagined it, but then his eyes met hers across the courtyard, and everything, the fort, the noise, the bleeding soldiers, fell away. He looked older, harder, yet the same fire lived in him. He was surrounded by soldiers, a prisoner this time, hands bound behind his back. Apache scout, one of the men spat. Caught him near the waterhole. Said he was spying. Her stomach dropped. "He saved me," she tried to say, but the lieutenant waved her off. "That's so. Then maybe you can tell us what side he's on." That night she couldn't sleep. His face haunted her through the thin canvas of her tent, and before dawn she made her choice. Sneaking through the sleeping camp, she made her way to the makeshift jailhouse where Tahoma sat alone, bound but proud. He didn't look surprised to see her. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "Neither should you," she replied. "You'll be hanged by morning." He tilted his head. "And you came to watch." "I came to stop it." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Tell me what happened." "Your soldiers found me tending the wounded," he said flatly. "Apache or white, doesn't matter. Blood is blood. They don't see that." She swallowed hard. "I can get you out." He looked up at her, eyes sharp as flint. "Why?" The word hit her harder than she expected. "Because you saved me." "Because?" She stopped herself, but he didn't. "Because what?" he pressed, voice low, steady. "Because I owe you," she said finally, though her heart told her it was a lie. He studied her for a long moment, then smiled faintly. "Then maybe now you'll trade." "Trade? You risk your life for mine. What's the price?" She stepped closer, her pulse loud in her ears. "Freedom," she whispered. "Yours. And yours?" he asked. "Do you even know what that means?" "I'll learn," she said.